Self-help often frames imposter syndrome as a defect to cure. In reality, it's an accurate signal that you're facing a steep learning challenge. We are told to chase unshakable confidence as the ultimate professional goal, but optimizing for pure psychological comfort usually leads to career stagnation. You stop stretching, and your skills freeze. Stress has two distinct physiological faces. There is distress, that sense of helplessness and panic that keeps you awake. And then there is eustress, your body preparing to perform. Your breath quickens to oxygenate your lungs, and your heart rate climbs to move blood. When you feel like an imposter stepping into a new role, you're often just experiencing eustress doing its job. It is a state of heightened awareness, signaling that you are in a high-growth, high-stakes environment. Trying to eradicate that feeling entirely is a significant career risk. If you feel perfectly secure all the time, you've likely stopped paying attention. The objective is to harness this tension as a functional tool for staying relevant. We visualize this through the S-curve of learning. Every new role begins at the flat tail. Lacking repetitions, initial low performance is mathematically appropriate. Difficulty then spikes in the steep vertical section, where micro-errors and insecurity peak. Welcome to the imposter zone. The central question is how to survive this climb. The strategy you need changes depending on which stage of your career you're in. Correctly diagnosing where you sit on the curve is the only way to treat your specific brand of imposter syndrome. Let's look at the first demographic, the white space beginner. This is usually the recent graduate or the new hire standing at the very bottom of the S-curve. For beginners, imposter syndrome is rooted in a literal deficit of experience. You got the job, but there is a significant volume of professional white space you need to fill before you can consistently exceed expectations. The primary input required here is volume. You have to accept low-stakes tasks and endure the ego hit that comes when your early output is just average. By grinding through high-volume repetitions, you fill the competence gap and establish your professional baseline. While you build that baseline, you can borrow confidence. If a manager hired you, they saw potential you can't see yet. Use their conviction to fuel your execution while you bridge the gap. This process is about internalizing that support over time. As Golda Meir suggested, the goal is to trust yourself enough to build a character you'll be happy to live with for the rest of your life. For the beginner, insecurity isn't a sign of failure. It is the unavoidable toll required to move from amateur to professional. Now consider the disrupted veteran. This is the professional with 20 years of experience who is suddenly back in the imposter zone. Veterans face a different trigger. Their fear stems from structural obsolescence, as the economic mode of experience they built over decades begins to crack. The commoditization of intelligence through generative AI and LLMs is rapidly shifting the landscape. The things veterans used to know are now available on demand. Staying relevant requires active experimentation, meaning micro-errors and feeling like a novice. Fortunately, veterans possess a strategic advantage: stored social capital. Years of shipping quality products earns a deep reservoir of professional grace. You must intentionally spend a small amount of that social capital. You use it to buy the time and margin needed for your own reinvention. This willingness to risk looking foolish is the hallmark of intellectual honesty. As Dr. Carl Sagan noted, every act of learning is an act of courage. Veterans have to surrender the comfort of being the unassailable expert. If they don't, they risk falling into the Dunning-Kruger trap of legacy stagnation. One psychological trap derails both the beginner and the veteran: the friction of FOMO on professional networks. It is intellectually lazy to compare your own internal, realistic doubts with the curated, external confidence of someone else's LinkedIn profile. That obsessive comparison drains your professional energy. Theodore Roosevelt famously observed that comparison is the thief of joy. Real career strategy is a game of one. You identify your unique, unfair advantage and compete strictly against your own past performance. You have to abandon the easy dopamine of status signaling to achieve structural career growth. Taking action is the only cure for the friction of the imposter zone. Getting your repetitions in neutralizes the fear. You are a craftsman. You must actively seek feedback, tweak your approach, and abandon legacy habits that no longer add value. A concentrated 20-hour sprint of learning, reading reports, testing models, rapidly removes the mystery from the unknown. Remember that feeling completely comfortable is often a dangerous signal. In a shifting economy, a total lack of worry is a sign of incompetence. If you are in professional services today and don't feel a slight sense of insecurity about the future, you are likely already becoming obsolete. Use this final diagnostic framework to assess your stress. First, am I actively converting anxiety into eustress to fuel daily performance? Second, have I made a calculated micro-error recently while experimenting with new AI tools? Finally, am I competing only against my past self? Stop trying to cure imposter syndrome. Acknowledge it as the required price of admission for staying relevant on the S-curve, and get back to work.